Welcome to episode number 276, where I'm taking a deep dive into Udaka Vaha Srotas, or the hydration channel in the body. I talk about the importance of this channel along with the sub-doshas involved and the Ayurvedic tips on hydration, and also how much hydration is required for each dosha type. So please stay tuned. Hi there, I'm your host Colette, and on this podcast I will be sharing the teachings of Ayurveda, yoga, and holistic health practices. Now, if you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend checking out the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. Thanks for listening, and now here's a new episode. This episode is sponsored by Kerala Ayurveda. If you're an Ayurvedic professional and want to upskill, check out Kerala Academy's continuing education programs. Topics include case discussions, formulation making, assessment and pulse diagnosis, Vedic formulations, and more. Study in person and via live streaming, and students from all schools are welcome. To learn more, visit keralaayurveda.us/courses and use the code ELEMENTS to save 10% on an upcoming program. And you'll find all that info in the show notes. Hello and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. You have me, Colette, today for another solo episode, and I'm continuing my series on the channels or the Srotas of the body. And today I'm focusing on the third and final input channel, Udaka Vaha Srotas, which is the hydration channel. Now, just to review for those listeners who are just jumping in on this episode, in episode number 272, I did an introduction to the channels of the body, which are called Srotas in Sanskrit. And in that episode, I focused on the first input channel, Anna Vaha Srotas, which is the food channel. Then in episode number 274, I focused on the second input channel, which is Prana Vaha Srotas, or the respiratory channel. And in this episode, I'm focusing, as I said, on Udaka Vaha Srotas, which is also known as Ambu Vaha Srotas. Both Udaka and Ambu refer to water, and Vaha means to carry, and Srotas means channel. So it's the water-carrying channel, and it also includes the channels that regulate water balance in the body. The root or mula of Udaka Vaha Srotas is the pancreas, which generates insulin and controls the sugar level of the body. The root is also the soft palate of the mouth and the choroid plexuses in the brain, which secretes cerebrospinal fluid. The opening is the kidneys, the sweat glands, and the tongue. The passage or marga is the gastrointestinal mucous membrane lining, and Udaka or water is also flowing through rasa, which is the first tissue of the body made up of the elemental juice from our digestive food. And rasa has the very important function of prana, which is nourishing, and jivana, which is enlivening the cells and tissues of the body by transporting vitamins, minerals, and hormones. Udaka Vaha Srotas includes saliva, gastric mucosal secretions, and the secretions of the pancreas. Now, approximately 60% of our body is made up of water, and no cell can survive without water. Water is essential for digestion, assimilation, and absorption. It also plays a role in respiration, perspiration, temperature control, urination, energy, electrolyte balance, and elimination of waste, and lots more. So let's take a look at the sub-doshas which govern Udaka Vaha Srotas to help us understand the importance of this hydration channel. First of all, prana vayu is primarily responsible for inhalation. Udana Vayu is responsible for exhalation and speech. And don't forget that air has moisture in it, and the water vapors are present in respiration. Samana Vayu governs digestion, absorption, and assimilation. Apana Vayu regulates the function of the kidneys and is present in the urinary tract, governing the downward and outward movement of urine. Vyana Vayu, the function is to maintain cardiac activity, circulation, nutrition, and oxygenation of the body. Pachakapitta is present in the small intestine and the stomach and aids in digestion, absorption, and assimilation. Kledika kapha is present in the gastrointestinal tract, and it creates the protective mucous membrane lining. The liquid qualities of Tarpika kapha are present in the white matter of the brain, the myelin sheath, and the cerebrospinal fluid. And finally, Bodhika kapha is located in the mouth and is represented by saliva. The tongue is the sense organ of water, and through saliva and the taste buds, we register taste. However, without water or saliva, we cannot taste. So you can see from the amount of subdoshas governing Udaka Vaha Srotas the important role that hydration plays in our body. Vitiation of the doshas can be responsible for disturbing the functional and structural integrity of the channels, and vitiation of the channels can result in vitiation of the dhatus and the dhatu or tissue flowing through it. Excess vitiation of the vata dosha can result in dehydration and dryness in the body, and this in turn can cause the fluid element present in pitta and kapha to dry up also. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, if we take too much water and the agni, or the digestive fire in Udaka Vaha Srotas, is low, then excess water cannot be digested and it accumulates in the cells, which then leads to edema, which is swelling caused by too much fluid trapped in the body's tissues, and it usually happens around the ankles. So let's take a look at the signs of aggravation of Udaka Vaha Srotas, the hydration channel, and what can cause these aggravations, and some tips on hydration for each dosha type. First of all, the signs of aggravation of Udaka Vaha Srotas are thirst, dehydration, dry skin, mouth, tongue, lips, dry body, water retention, edema swelling, scanty or excessive urination, diarrhea, and diabetes. Now, what can cause the aggravation? Well, it could be a fact of too little or too much liquid intake, suppression of thirst, exposure to excessive heat, excessive exercise and sweating, emotional stress, dry foods, excess pungent, sour, and salty taste, too much sugar, extreme fasting, alcohol, caffeine, and diarrhea. Of course, with diarrhea, you can lose a lot of water with the loose stool. So as I mentioned a moment ago, thirst is one of the signs of dehydration in the body. When dehydration occurs, the extracellular fluid volume is decreased and the concentration of sodium rises. Osmoreceptors are sensory receptors primarily found in the hypothalamus and kidneys that regulate sodium and water balance. When these receptors detect changes, they send messages to the hypothalamus, which in turn creates the sensation of thirst. Now, unfortunately, many people confuse thirst and hunger, and oftentimes people may reach for something to eat rather than something to drink to hydrate the body. And of course, if this happens on a regular basis, then it can lead to dehydration and further complications. So let's review the signs of thirst, and they may include dry skin, dry eyes, headache, nausea, dizziness, feeling sluggish, or an increased heart rate. Now you can see why these symptoms could be confused with hunger because they're very similar to signs of hunger. And if you're unsure whether what you're feeling is thirst or hunger, then the best thing to do is take about 15 to 20 minutes to sip on some liquids and then see how you feel. And if you feel satisfied, then you know that it was just thirst. So I really want you to be mindful of that as you move forward and really tuning into your body. Is this thirst I feel, or is it actual hunger? However, the key really is not to wait until you feel thirsty, as your body is already dehydrated at that point. So you want to keep ahead of this by staying hydrated throughout the day, as your body requires water to run efficiently. Did you know that 83% of our lungs contain water, 73% of our heart and brain, and 64% of our skin? Let me just remind you, Again, how important water is. Water is required for aiding digestion, elimination. It regulates blood temperature. It lubricates and protects the tissues, the organs, and the joints, transport nutrients and oxygen to the cells, supports the kidneys and liver by flushing out waste products. It acts as a shock absorber for the brain, spinal cord, and fetus. Balancing to all three doshas, it promotes focus and longevity, and in summary, it's just really important for the normal functioning of the entire body. So now that I have reinforced the importance of water, let's talk about how much and what's necessary for each dosha type. So how much fluid does the average healthy person need in a temperate climate? Well, according to the U.S. National Academy of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, they determined that the adequate daily fluid intake is about 15.5 cups or 3.7 liters of fluids a day for a man, and about 11.5 cups or 2.7 liters of fluids a day for women. But we know that in Ayurveda, it is dosha specific. And of course, the amount of water that each person requires will depend on age, the season, diet, the type of work environment you're in. Are you in a dry working environment? Is there a lot of air conditioners? How much exercise you do? And your constitution. So let's go through each dosha type and talk about the water requirements. So as we know, vata is comprised of the space and air elements and therefore does not contain any water element. And vata has the tendency to dry out very easily. Therefore, the vata dosha requires the most water and should be getting at a minimum the 2.7 liters per day. So for those of you with a high vata constitution or a vata imbalance, really important to be focusing on hydration every day, because we see lots of functions of the body require water, and because of your tendency towards dehydration, and I often find there's not a great awareness of thirst, then it's really important to really focus on getting those fluids in every day to make sure that your body can function optimally. Now, the pitta dosha is comprised of water and fire elements and needs this water element to control that fire from getting out of control. And pitta will often feel quite thirsty with their warm body type. And so feel that those with a high pitta constitution, they usually have a good indicator of thirst. However, with that pitta goal setting, they can set goals for drinking so much water. And what will often happen is there could be a lot of gulping or chugging water in order to get that water quantity in. So I'm going to talk about this in a moment, but really important not to chug or gulp water, just sip on it. And finally, for the kapha dosha, which is comprised of the water and earth elements, and kapha has the most amount of water in their constitution, and they can have a tendency to retain water. Therefore, kapha needs less amount of water, definitely less than pitta or vata types. But of course, you still want to make sure that you're having adequate fluids so the body can function. Now let's talk about the Ayurvedic tips on drinking water. So warm water is easier to digest, and it also boosts the agni, the digestive fire. So for those with a high vata and kapha constitution, it's best to drink boiled water and then drink it warm. And for those with a high pitta constitution, it's best to have water which is boiled and then cool down to room temperature. Cold and ice water can suppress the digestive fire, so best to be avoided. Ayurveda recommends sipping on water throughout the day, and sipping on it in between your meals is ideal. You never, as I said a moment ago, want to gulp or chug large amounts of water, because that will just overwhelm your digestive system and the body. And you also want to avoid drinking large amount of water just before, just after, or while eating, as this will affect digestion. So sipping on warm water while you eat is fine, but avoid drinking large amounts of water 60 minutes before or after you eat. So it's absolutely fine to take a sip of warm water while you're eating, but again, avoid gulping. You can use your urine as a guide to check if you're getting enough water. If you're well hydrated, your urine should be clear to straw colored. If it's darker, then it's an indication that you need to drink more water. Another indication of adequate hydration are your lips. If they are dry, then your body is dehydrated, so get more fluids. Now, if you're really having a hard time remembering to drink, then I suggest putting a timer on your phone. And if you're sitting a lot during the day at your desk, you can use this timer as a reminder for a micro break. So get up to get some water and do a stretch as well. So you can have that timer to remind you of hydration and the micro break from sitting. Now, I often get asked the question of what to drink. Firstly, I don't think we should count any caffeinated drinks as part of our daily intake of liquids, as they can have a dehydrating effect on the body, and most people are leaning more towards dehydration. So to be on the safe side and ensure that we're getting enough liquids, don't count the caffeinated tea or coffee towards your total. However, caffeine-free herbal teas, which are made from dried flowers, leaves, seeds, or roots, can be counted the same as water. So what you want to take into consideration here are the ingredients, as each ingredient will have a different quality and different effect on the doshas. But overall, water is the best to drink to stay hydrated. It's caffeine-free and it's inexpensive. My recommendations are to start your day with warm water to hydrate, to aid digestion, and to stimulate a bowel movement. You can add lemon, lime, or ginger if you wish. And of course, what you add to your water will have an effect on the dosha. So for example, for vata, you could add lemon to your warm water. Pitta does best with lime. And coffee, you could add lemon and ginger to help stimulate the digestion, because your digestion can be a little bit sluggish in the morning. I also recommend carrying water with you daily in a thermos to keep it warm is ideal, and that gives you a good indicator of how much you've drunk throughout the day. If you're drinking herbal teas, as I said, it's best to choose ingredients that are pacifying for your constitution and appropriate for the time of day. So for example, the Vata constitution does well with warming spices like cinnamon, clove, star anise, and having a calming tea in the evening is best to calm the nervous system before bed. So things like lavender or chamomile tea in the evening are perfect. However, one thing I would like to make sure, especially for Vata constitution types, is to make sure you're not drinking too late in the evening. Otherwise, you'll end up waking during the night to urinate. The Pitta constitution does well with cooling teas like rose, hibiscus, coriander seed, and fennel. And then for Kapha constitution, you can choose stimulating herbal teas like citrus, ginger, and eucalyptus. Okay, so that's it for this episode. And I hope it's highlighted for you the necessity of proper hydration. And in particular, if you suffer from dryness in the body, I recommend that you focus on your daily water consumption to prevent dehydration, headaches, lack of concentration, and to boost proper functioning of the organs like the brain, the kidneys, the lungs, the liver, the stomach. Make your skin look really hydrated, and of course for all the systems of the body. Remember, no cell in the body can survive without water. I also recommend checking out episode number 190, The Ayurvedic Perspective on Water. Chatted with Dr. Lele, where we discuss our connection with water and nature, the significance of water in our lives, our relationship with water, in health and in disease, the qualities of water, water and emotions, and the importance of respecting water. I really loved that conversation with Dr. Lele, so please check that out. And as always, if you need support in managing your health and well-being, I have some online services that might interest you. I offer online consultations where I educate you on your mind-body type, and if you have a current imbalance, and then put together a strategy for your diet, lifestyle, self-care, and mindfulness practices, and I tailor that to you and your lifestyle. I also offer online cleanses tailored to each person. This is a digestive reset cleanse. It's a holistic program. It comes with a 90-minute consultation so that I can tailor the recipes, the yoga, the self-care, and the mindfulness to you. There's a private cleanse where you can choose your own schedule, your own dates that works for your calendar, or you can join my next group digestive reset cleanse, which is discounted, and that starts April 21st, 2023. Now, if you're a person who prefers to study by yourself and you want more education around Ayurveda, I have my Daily Habits for Holistic Health program. It's a 28-day online program educating you on how to structure your day to flow with the daily energy cycles rather than going against them and suffering. I talk about the mental gunas or qualities and how to maintain positive mental health. I talk about the foundations of Ayurvedic healing, how to become your own healer, and I talk about connecting with your true nature and intuition to help guide you in living a positive and fulfilling life. So lots of online options there for you to choose from. If you would like support on your journey with Ayurveda, and if you would like to chat in advance of booking any program, please book the free 15-minute services inquiry call and we can chat about all your questions. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found this episode beneficial. And if you think it would be beneficial to family or friends, please share it with them. If you haven't already subscribed or followed the podcast, please do so the new episodes will automatically download for you. And if you would like to rate and review the podcast, I would really appreciate that. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook under Elements Healing and Wellbeing. And until next time, take good care of yourself, be well, and bye for now. Slán go fóill.